I think the mission of the YWCA is really honorable and commendable, especially that it's twofold, considering racism and also women and empowering women. I founded this entire organization because I'm passionate about the idea of inclusivity. And it wasn't enough for me just to help neighbors in need in Princeton. I started thinking when I would go into places, because like I said, I was laid off, and unfortunately I didn't have the funds to be able to get the ingredients needed to provide the food myself. I started thinking, it's not fair for me to ask for these materials from these business people when they too are struggling to survive, and they have to lay off a lot of their employees, and these business owners are also struggling. So the lens that I really looked at the problem of COVID was, how can we help everybody? And also I had some forward thought and insight. If the businesses aren't doing well, the employees aren't doing well, and the whole cycle is going to continue. Those employees are going to be the people then waiting in line Monday, Wednesday, Friday when we have our free store Tienda Gratis open, and I didn't want that. So inclusivity was something really important to me. How can we include everybody, and not just people from businesses, people from the community, but I realized that the community also encompasses the economy, the local economy, and when that's doing well, hopefully other people can thrive. A startling statistic for me that has always been startling, and it's getting marginally better, but not enough of that increase, is that for every dollar white person makes, a black person makes 97 cents. And that wage gap puts a lot of black people and people of color at a catastrophic disadvantage. And so what I find really striking and stunning actually is in Princeton, if you go to Library Place, for example, and you're standing in front of a house, it could be a $3.5 million house that you're looking at, gorgeous. You walk a block up, across 206, you're in Stanworth Apartments. A lot of grad students reside there. People don't realize that there's affordable living right in Stanworth. A block farther still, so you're now 2 blocks, maybe a 5-minute walk tops from where you were at that $3.5 mansion. And there are sometimes 20 people struggling to survive in one household. A lot of undocumented immigrants, a lot of need in our Latinx community. So addressing income inequality, which oftentimes is due to that wage gap that I previously mentioned, that's what we're committed to, and I think it's awesome that the Y is also committed to that. As for women, I can just say that I'm very fortunate to work with a volunteer group of about 35 volunteers, a lot of whom are women, a lot of whom are young women, and 2 sisters in particular. One is 13, one's 14. Their names are Violet and Bessa. And they came and they said, we'd like to help. And I started off letting them help out at the free store where we give out these products. I just wanted to say that the cycle, for those who don't know about the Mr. Rogers Neighbors Kindness Project, instead of just giving these products and food to people in need, we encourage people who have money, those people who might live in that Library Place mansion, we encourage them to buy and add on those meals and items and product items and food for people in need. So we're taking people who have money and we're saying, you have money, let's spread that wealth. So that cycle, that business model in which we really became what we are today, that's what's addressing income inequality and that big disparity of wealth in Princeton and our surrounding community. So these 2 girls wanted to help out at the free store where we distribute those products that are paid for by those members of our community who are more fortunate than others. And they did a great job, and they were responsible. They showed up on time, and in a time where parents are really struggling to work and also manage virtual classes for their kids. I don't know how parents do it. I'm not lucky enough to be a mom. I can only imagine, but the kids are also struggling. So I had some empathy, and some of them don't have, great living situations. They want to get out of their houses. So I said to Violet and Bessa, instead of just doing this, why don't you take ownership of the neighbors' wishes, this particular component of our business model where people can add on wishes for kids. So what do you know? They came up with an organization system. They came up with a bulletin board system. Now you go to Jazam's and some of our participating neighbors businesses and Labyrinth Books, and you can see Mr. Rogers Neighbors Kindness Project wishes. Please add on a book for a 7-year-old. And they came up with that concept, they with our model, and empowering those two young women to realize that their vision mattered, that I heard what their ideas were, and not only that, but we implemented them in the real world experience. I think I just saw how they came to work or to volunteer the next few days standing taller. They were really like so proud. You know, I saw them as adults, I saw them as capable, and to be perfectly honest with you, it was some of the most capable volunteers we have on the team. Probably the woman who had the most inspiration in my life was my grandmother, and her name was Helen Kingston, and she had red hair and blue eyes, and she was a strong woman in a time that wasn't really for women. She was a Mensa, which means she had a super high IQ. She was one of the first women to be admitted into Temple University. She was just incredibly bright, and my grandfather, who didn't even graduate high school, married her and had her be in charge of a big part of his business. And he always said, you know, Helen, you're smart and I defer to you. And just seeing that dynamic in my childhood was really empowering. My grandmother didn't really share wisdom directly with me. She never said, Blair, you know, when you grow up, remember this or remember that, or be sure to do this. It was more kind of an indirect action she would take in the household. I lost her when I was 9 years old, which was way too young to lose a grandmother, but she would always say, when my mom invariably or my brother would be teasing me for thinking out of the box, she would always say, that's what's going to get you ahead, or that's what gets people ahead. And so just being around a woman who used her smarts and kind of her grace to lead the way in what was a male-dominant field, my grandfather was an entrepreneur, was really inspirational to me. Probably the biggest piece of advice I would give to a woman following in my footsteps is don't listen to me, and really, I don't mean to be glib, don't listen to what people have to say. In an environment right now, such as the one as a millennial we're in, which is dominated by social media, and it's easy to compare yourself to other women, and to, you know, you're kind of inundated and bombarded by what you should look like, what you should be doing, you know, all these shoulds. I think being centered and really looking in and saying, what is it that I want to accomplish? What is it that I want to do? And how can I be the best that I can be? And I think having blinders on and is one way to really kind of start that fire. COVID-19 is actually the impetus for me starting the entire Mr. Rogers Neighbors Kindness Project. So I was working at the Princeton University Art Museum, and I got laid off, I think it was March 13th, speaking of unlucky 13s. And 2 days later, I had this idea. Actually, my brother, unfortunately, was homeless for a large period of my life. So homelessness is a cause I really care about. So I figured I'm gonna have all this time on my hands, and rather being stuck at home with my high energy German Shepherd Pointer puppy, I wanted to say, how can I be productive, get out of the house, and feel like I'm doing something for good? And I was really, I was concerned because all of the homeless shelters in Princeton were shut down as a result of CDC guidelines. So I started this in order to help those people who are in need, who wouldn't have access to food or products that they might need during this difficult time. And the need is only expanded. So I started off helping, I think it was 20 people, and now we're servicing over 485 families in need in Princeton. Continuing to advance the mission of the YWCA, I see as an honor, being attributed as an honoree, and also responsibility. And how I would do that is to continue to reassess our branding messages when we do give out our neighbors bags. If there's a current issue on race, if it's Black History Month, we continue to reassess and make sure that we are taking that messaging and putting it in the forefront of our customers' minds, because what's important to us is important to our neighbors, and we see ourselves as the voice for our neighbors in need. And people who do have wealth, who might not be aware of that income disparity, are then made aware of these racial concerns that we're committed to. In addition, we're continuing to expand our neighborhood. So right now we're working with and partnering with 35 neighbors businesses. A lot of them are women-owned businesses, like Lily Pies in Princeton, and Jam and Crepes, 2 women own that business. So we will continue to expand our offerings, and it's not enough for me just to say we're partnering with Lily Pies, but to say Jen Carson is the owner of Lily Pies, she is a woman, and look what she's accomplished when the odds are against her. Or continuing, for example, we are partnering with some Black-owned products at Whole Earth. We make sure that instead of getting our body washes from Suave, we can support local businesses that are Black-owned, like Nubian Products, which are great products. Highly recommend them. But Mr. Rogers' Neighbors Kindness Project does encourage and support these products, and we will continue to do so and keep these important causes in the minds and hearts of people in our community, since we do have that voice and the power to do so.